Hello, everyone, and welcome to this second webinar from the series Celebrating Public Space. Today, we are celebrating public space on the occasion of Earth Day, and I'm glad to be together with the Eastern Mediterranean University to promote this initiative. My name is Luisa Bravo, and I am the founder and president of City Space Architecture, a non-profit organization based in Italy, working on promoting public space culture globally. This initiative started from a cooperation that I developed with Sebnem, Hoskara, from Eastern Mediterranean University in Cyprus. And today I'm happy to have a colleague, Pinar Ulukai. I don't know if I pronounced correctly your family name. Sorry for any mistake. And the idea is, as I said, that we use these international celebrations on specific dates and topics to actually discover which links connect public space with major challenges that the planet and the humanity are facing. So today is Earth Day, so happy Earth Day to everyone, those that are connected for this meeting and those that will later watch the recording. So now I pass the floor to Pinar to actually present the contents of this webinar. Well, actually, as I said, this is not a webinar, this is a meeting, and we ask participants to join and to feel free to ask questions, interact with the speakers. While we speak, you can also use the chat to ask questions. So our idea is that these meetings are the opportunity also to meet new people and to exchange knowledge with others from multiple backgrounds and multiple perspectives. So, Pinar, floor.
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you very much. Well, I'm an architect, also a member of the Urban Research and Development Center, and also I'm trying to help to organize Housing Education Research and Advisory Center here at Eastern Mediterranean University at Faculty of Architecture. So I'm actually grateful that this common initiation is taking place between URDC and City Space Architecture. Today, of course, is very meaningful, and I think our colleagues here and our guests are also, I think Luisa will explain their background. It very much, I think, overlaps with the day that we are going to celebrate. So I would just briefly like to remind you that it was 52 years ago on this date in 1970, where almost 20 million American citizens got together in the streets to protest against environmental crisis. And that event created a big impact on not only in USA, but on a global context. And it has become one of the most largest civic events that we remember today. So this created a large awareness on environmental issues. And every year, of course, Earth Day is celebrated through various seminars, events, and concerts all around the world. And today we gathered to actually celebrate it by our event today. So, I would like to, maybe, I don't know, would you like to introduce our guests, Luisa?
Yes, I can introduce our two speakers today. Also, I'm glad that we have this female panel again, after the first webinar we had on International Women's Day. It seems that women are taking the scene also on Earth Day, which is very good. So thank you to Nina Bachmann and Insaf Ben Otmane to join today. Actually, these two speakers have a very rich and different profile in terms of approaching the topic of Earth Day. Nina Bachmann is a Finnish artist, performer, curator, and founder of the Silence Project. She exhibits internationally, and her work can be found in both private and public collections. She has developed this unique performance, the Silence Mill, which actually also performed with us City Space Architecture in Bologna last summer. And with Nina, we are now planning to develop a project of a mini forest in Bologna, which is part of a bigger project, 1 million trees to Finland, that Nina is developing in Finland, but she's also trying to bring the message of this activism made through art in other countries in Europe. And then we have Insaf Ben Otmane. Sorry, maybe I pronounced bad your name. Thanks.
It's good.
She is a Tunisian architect, urban development strategist, and researcher. And she's the founder of Ecumene Studio, which she describes as the evolving hub for creative processes, complex and connected mechanisms, disciplines, knowledge, and people to rebuild resilient societies by bridging the gap between the know and the know-how, the theory and practice. Insaf was one of the authors in an issue that we published some time ago on the Journal of Public Space, and she is a successful practitioner, and she's working across different countries in the MENA region, and she's currently based in Ireland. And she speaks English, French, Arabic. She is a very talented practitioner. So thank you both for joining. So maybe Nina, you would like to start?
Yes, I can start. So I think I will first talk a little bit and then we can look at the presentation. So
yes.
first of all, I would like to say Happy Earth Day to everyone. And thank you very much for Luisa to inviting me. And as Luisa already told me, I am a Finnish artist. But I've been living away from Finland already for 20 years. I'm currently in Berlin, and I am a founder of the Silent Project. And the Silent Project is connected to the Earth Day in that way that my inspiration really was the Nordic silence, but also very much the everyman right, which you might have heard. Everyman right, in short, is a tradition where the nature is shared by everyone. So everyone has the access to the forest and also all the fruits of the forest. But this also comes with the responsibility, so one should also take care of the nature. And I find that custom very good. It can be also challenging because, of course, you have to know how to respect other people's space. Because in practice, even if I own the land, people could go to my land and be there, and it's fine as long as they know are, acting and behaving in a respectful way. So, but nevertheless, I find that very. I feel like it's really some way the presenting for me the essence of the Nordic culture, and this idea that nature should be shared by everyone. And so I have been trying to bring this everyman right and silence Nordic nature forward with my program by exploring the element of silence in a variety of ways. And then 2019, I kind of thought that I would like to do something practical also. And since we are talking about creating space and silence also, I thought that we should plant a forest and do that as a contemporary art piece. And but then people joined in, and it just changed a little bit. It became a project called A Million Trees to Finland. And what we are doing, we are presenting, or we are creating seedling events very often with museums and art organizations, and we are giving free seedlings out. And then we get the cities and counties involved, because I find it's very important to find places where you can plant the seedlings, even though lots of people also plant to their home and summer cottage or their own space. But for me, it's important that we can also access, and we can see where those trees are and how they are going to grow in the next years. And because tree project, they are also getting a little bit of criticism, because of course the most important thing is to support the old forest and stop the clear cutting, especially with this very aggressive machinery. So I also agree that we should support our old forest, but I still think that it's important to plant trees, as long as they are done in a good way. And for that, I very much feel that we should create green places inside our cities, and the more the better. And I'm really interested in this concept of mini forests, what we are also doing, but also these like forest gardens, so that people could have clean food in their neighborhood, and places for healing and silence and reflection and just beauty also very much. So because I felt that we have to also do something to support the biodiversity, because this is really a big problem, of course, globally, but also in Finland. We created a piece which is called Mini Forest. It's bought by the cities as a piece of art, but really it is a little forest. And what we're trying to do with that is to really support the biodiversity. So using a lot of dead wood and crab wood, which is collected from the cities. And then we plant really huge amount of flowers and herbs and trees and all kinds of things, just to see how we can turn these very boring, grass areas in the cities into something more valuable and beautiful and good for the environment. And that's why I'm very interested in working with Luisa, of course, because I see that what we're doing internationally with these mini forests is that we're taking a little bit of the everyman right, and we bring that piece of everyman right to international cities, because for me it's very important that they would be free places for everyone would have access to them. Just find that very important. Although we do have also some areas or places that are private, but I think if they are used in an educational way, that's okay. But mainly my interest would be to see these mini forests really spread all around Europe and globally, and yes, just bring more nature and trees and well-being and silence for the people, and also then make connection with local people and local projects and exchange information. Because of course, when we make mini forests now in Italy, we have to have a completely different set of trees, and we have to always plant according to the climate. But this is what I am doing, and yes, and I am doing this as an artist, and I do see them as a pieces of art as well, and contemporary places. And my silent project and concept in a way is a little bit like a puzzle. So you can do separate things, but you can also bring different elements together. So for instance, with the mini forest that we are creating to Italy, I hope that we can create the silence meal in there, or seminars or something else. So they're kind of multi-purposeful places. And the last thing what I would say is that we are just now starting to work with as a group of scientists called the co-carbon, which are just then measuring all kind of in calculation for that. We don't have them yet, but so this is one element then also that bringing together meaning. Yes.
Yeah, Nina, do you want me to show the PDF of the project?
Yes, we can show the PDF. But we are opening now the first bigger mini forest end of May. And for some reason in Finland, it's been so cold that we still have snow on in there. So you can't see really anything. But we are nevertheless opening in May and continuing the planting. But there are few pictures. I think if you go down, because also we create the mini forest can also be created as a pop-up, and we also do that. So it's a kind of pop-up. You can put it in a very hot place. For people, it can be very small, just as an example to show how it could work also in a permanent place. And this is also coming as a product so that people could buy their own little mini forest. And this is very small, it's just 8 to 14 square meters. Can I go down with that? Oh, yes, I can. Sorry. Oh, no, you can't. Can you go down with that, Luisa? Because I can't access it.
Yes.
You can?
Yes, it's yes, it's this is the last slide.
Oh, I have a different slide here.
Yes, we're still looking to the first page of the PDF.
Yeah. Because there are a few little pictures, just to give an idea. So this is, for instance, okay, but one before is the pop-up one. Can you just go up? Sorry, I should be able to. You can go a little bit up, still more. So this is, for instance, a pop-up place. You go just a little bit down, you see that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was only 24 square meters. And it was created as a pop-up. So it's at the end of, so basically we just created a frame and put earth in there and created a little forest there. And immediately a lot of herbs and flowers and dead wood also quite a bit. And it really, you could see that immediately you had different insects, you had birds, you had butterflies, you had bees. And he had a little space inside also where people could go and sit and have some shade. But the next one, and this was very small, this was 24 square meters. It was just to show that something like that can be created quite easily. If you go, but this is, the next one is here, but you see, you can't really see very much. But this is already bigger one, it's 2,400 square meters. You could just stop it there, and it's opening now in May in Finland. It has 220 trees. It has around, I think, 300 different kind of flowers and herbs. It has a section which is eatable trees and all kind of berry bushes and strawberries and things like that. And apple trees, of course, pearl trees. So it's supposed to be a place where people can also go and you know, pick fresh herbs and fruits and just enjoy the park.
Beautiful.
So unfortunately, I don't have too many pictures yet, but end of May, when we are opening, then our site is also operating and there will be more pictures. I hope it gives you a little bit of an idea what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I think
it's very interesting since, as you said, you are an artist, so you are bringing a perspective from an artist, how to actually design a proposal, an art proposal that it is able to, develop community engagement, also awareness, and also providing opportunities for interaction with different people of different ages.
Yes, I should mention that since I'm now, of course, taking courses about gardening and green design also. So, but we are working with the city gardeners. So I work with the team of the city's gardeners, and they are also credited for the work. Because I felt it's important that when we go to a new place or a city, that we are working with the people which are already working there, instead of coming from outside. And of course, there are also people which are a little bit hesitant that suddenly there's an artist making gardens, and because there are also permanent places and they should stay there. But we're trying to collaborate with people, and I also feel like. Yes, it's just a little bit different approach, and I think they look a little bit different, and why not? I think there's space for that too.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I mean, it's a very interesting project, but the fact that it's been proposed by you, who studied performing arts, is even more meaningful. I was thinking it's almost like you are wanting to present people an environment that they can. They can perform and they can actually get educated. So it's really a present, I think, to civic society to get engaged in in a really beautiful environment that we can learn from. So I find it very meaningful, actually, that as an artist you got involved in this, and of course maybe also you have the power to create an impact on the media. If I'm not wrong, I mean, you will answer that. But I think this is maybe for calling for collaboration and help.
Yeah, I think it's a very much of a project which has to be done and should be done with collaborations. Absolutely. Yeah, but it is a wonderful project. I mean, I'm enjoying it also. Yeah.
So is the collaboration part easy, or because that's something that we find actually most intriguing, to actually get people engaged in an activity.
Yeah.
So
I have to say that I like to collaborate very much, and I am a real believer that we have to get people from variety of fields together. And so I'm working with very different kind of people, because I work with technicians in the cities and bureaucrats, of course. So it's quite difficult sometimes. And then I work with scientists, and sometimes the way they present the information, it's not so easy to present it out in a way that people actually understand it. And so yes, I think can be challenging, but honestly, I believe that I think it's the best way to go forward with something like that. But at the same time, I am also then quite protective about the content and who we work with also. So there are certain sponsors we can't work with, and I always look at it that it's fitting for the silent project also, that we are continuing this idea of exploring silence in a variety of ways. So yeah,
it's beautiful.
But generally, I like to collaborate.
Thank you, Nina, for the presentation, and we will collect also questions from the audience at the end. Meantime, if participants would like to write some comments, you can do this using the chat. So now we have our second speaker. Insaf, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I think that what I prepared for today was actually a speech. I don't know why, but I felt like it's something that I wanted to communicate more in writing. So I will be reading the small text I've wrote. And I think it will resonate a lot with also Nina's work. So I'm very pleased to be with you today, and I would like to thank Eastern Mediterranean University, Urban Research and Development Center of City Space Architecture for this invitation. In particular, Luisa, I'm very happy to meet you, and I'm glad that you invite me to be here today. So to celebrate Earth Day with you, it's a day that it is dedicated to raising awareness about the importance of protecting our planet. That is why I prepared, of course, this speech where I share my thoughts and the core value of my practice. So this century witnessed a growing focus on climate change and the need to reduce our reliance on unstable resources and realize the impact of our common actions on Earth. Earth doesn't know territories, nations, countries, or differences. Earth is our home. Earth unifies us. Earth is abundant, and we take Earth for granted. Why Earth Day is important for me? Well, the answer lies within the name of my organization. It's Ecumen, Ecumen Spaces for Dignity. It's the Ecumen, and it's a Greek word that meant before the inhabited territory on Earth. Today, this concept has evolved, of course, as the majority of the planet is inhabited. Augustin Berck defines the Ecumen as being both the terrestrial measurements of man and the human measurements of the Earth, where the physical world is not dissociated from the phenomenal one. So this existential relationship of humankind to their place is the Ecumen. Modern and contemporary science have neglected this relationship by favoring an objectivist approach to the world. This universion of the real has led to the refusal of the constitutive diversity of the Ecumen. In other words, an understanding of our existence that refuses to consider the human condition under its two aspects, material and spiritual, objective and subjective. So why is it important to talk about this? As we speak about the planet and climate change, we need to grasp the solutions are in our ability to change our minds, our postures as individuals and also as a collective. It is very fascinating to know that in this world who is centered on vulnerability and fragility, we are rediscovering terminologies and words that have disappeared since the 17th century, which marked the emergence of the modern school of thoughts, of course, like coexistence, harmony, rhythm, symbiosis, cohabitation, mimesis in the different fields in architecture, urban design in particular. So these words came back more as questions and not only as answers. So we can today talk about the ecology of the aesthetics and combine it with ecological of transition. We can blur the marks and be open to seeing the word in its complexity and interconnectedness, and art, beauty as tools to regenerate it, a universal language that unifies us with our milieu, the in-action process of the Ecumen. So through the production of space, we are actually looking for the how to situate ourselves in our world, in the word we share with others, form of life, and therefore the question of encounter comes to the fourth line with beauty as encounter. So separating nature from culture is a trap. It leads to nowhere unless negation of the reality and its diversity. The inhabited milieu are the reconciliation between culture and nature, human as part of the cosmos and not outside of it. So how to achieve belonging, how to build this belonging, how to invent this aesthetics of belonging. This aesthetic has, and I borrow the words of Chris Younes here, had to do with the way of remaking the word, of redesiring a common word that is essential today to finally overcome the ways of faire monde, ways of existence that have been extremely deadly and toxic. So today's relationship of humans to nature was inherited from the modern global colonized mindset. It is the idea that humans were determined by their capacity, even their duty to dominate and ultimately master everything surrounding them. And this idea of the over-control was harmful, and it is harmful. So we can all challenge our minds today and see how it is difficult to separate from the dualities. We keep speaking about human and non-human, human and earth, human and space. And dualism makes it impossible to consider the togetherness, the common, the collective, the symbiosis we have with what contains us, this capacity to adapt, to recreate living conditions that leads to a shared existence. And of course, likewise, we must invent a practice of production of space, which is part of the chain of life, a practice in which there is an interdependence actually between, this fact of belonging and nature. So we try to, of course, develop ways to measure and to maintain this dialogue with fragility and the capacity to reinvent architecture, design, landscapes. These signs of aesthetics that I called can be able to build and maintain synergies between all the elements and cycles of life and all the dimensions of our link to the living and make them work. So art plays a transformative role through redefining new ways of comprehending our relation to the world, differently than the destructive traditions of a colonized nature. And I love the quote of Timothy Morton in All Art is Ecological. He argues that art has the capacity to transform us and attunes us to a reality beyond ourselves, and thereby it crowns our anthropocentric worldview. So Augustin Berg with the Ecumen aims to renature the culture and reculture the nature, and highlights the Western domination that has been systemic. So in a relationship with the fragile order of coexistence, it's important to rethink the world that we want to see happen. Technology will not be only the solution. You have to be, to bet on the imagination. The work we all undertake around the public space, for instance, this entity of complex milieu, the way how I see it, we in a collective manner, we aim to lay down truth, deactivate racism, nurture a dialogue of equals, and support the emergence of a planetary consciousness of the ecumen and the practice of the common, and feel the immense void between the human and the earth. Human loses their meaning when it claims to be free and disengaged from their surroundings, from their milieu. So facing today's uncertainty and the need for structural transformation linked to contemporary ecological challenges, how can we tackle together the question of livability and the unlivable? How to support the major changes to transform our relationship with our planet? How to nurture living ecologies enriched with meaning, shared values, common histories with other humans and other species? What is the role of art in creating a culture of sustainability? Then it is clear that we cannot separate humanity from the nature world, not only because we are human beings, but because we depend on. Not seeing the complexity of how the world is engineered is even more dangerous. So we have to invent and find tools to understand and see this complexity. That means that we have to train our minds of technocrats and experts to comprehend the complexity and act based on it. This means we have to rethink knowledge. In contexts where vulnerability is becoming universally a process, where geographies of belongings are reshaped, we have taken this path in Ecumen, for instance, to explore, test, and engage wherever there is a room for the invention of new ways of togetherness and coexistence. So thank you and happy Earth Day for all.
Thank you for your speech. It's interesting because I think you framed the topic in a quite a different way compared to the work of Nina. So since you actually are an active practitioner in public space design, how do you think we could relate public space to these challenges? Because what we understand as a major issue in order to preserve the planet, it is also mostly related to climate change. And now we see that there is a growing interest to include the nature-based solutions also in public space design. So to, find some nature also inside the urban settings of central and suburban areas. So do you think that, this topic, preserving the planet, because this is also clearly stated in the Agenda for Sustainable Development, And in these meetings and this whole program on celebrating public space, we are also addressing SDGs. So do you think that this emerging topic was already there, but I feel now there is enough awareness on the topic, and so it is coming up as an emerging topic. So do you think this emerging topic will change the way we also design public space?
Thank you, Luisa, for the question. I think the things are, we can see it in a different way. The question is, are we capable of seeing ourselves actually part of it? This is what exactly I wanted really to emphasize on it. As long as we see things as being a part A and part B, and we have to deal with it, we are not engaged in this process of building that common knowledge, because you know, all what we are doing today, especially these participatory approaches and this tactical, you know, interventions. And of course, as even Nina, what she's doing, maybe if we have a reread it again, it's actually to engage in a kind of a process of learning territories. It means what? It means that we create a third space, which could be, you know, the forest, or it could be any kind of other elements, through which we engage into relationship and negotiation and debate to make people involved and to make ourselves involved. It's a deconstruction, reconstruction process that affects us. We cannot be not impacted within that. So in reality, what we need, even the SDGs was something very crucial. Why? Because basically, and people who works a lot on participation and community and gathering people around one table knows how hard to build such SDGs. It means that the whole nations will be having a set of vision all together towards it. The question is how to put it into actions. And this is where the role we can play. So art, which is in certain schools, we say it's art, it's a language, but it's beyond that. It's art, it's basically, let's say, the immaterial space through which we can redefine and rediscuss and negotiate our boundaries. To acknowledge the reality that we are linked to this earth and to its resources, and to feel this kind of also part of responsibility, you know, this part of, let's say, even when we engage in such designing spaces, how to maintain them. It's basically all of that. It comes like a very collaborative process. We open a lot of intellective intelligence. We build this learning territories where each time we use design to create possibilities where we open room for such, you know, encounters. And that's why we basically deconstruct our role. We start to become the ones who reconnect. It's actually rereading the role of an architect or designers. We do that, but we don't really say it. We actually connect the dots. We actually try to redefine, we moderate. We try to find ways in a positive way to how to make this kind of harsh negotiation took place. And that's why it's this, we needed to be passionate about it, and we needed, of course, this goal or roadmap give us at least some kind of, you know, guidelines, all right? But meanwhile, what we should have, people resist to the idea of climate change because nobody in reality loves to say that he's threatened. And this is something that we need to endorse, that working on knowledge or know-how is not only enough. Working on the know-being and how we are as human being is something very important. That's why when I emphasize about architecture, what I see the common things is about art, actually, that makes the human being capable of going beyond their fears and going beyond everything. And that's why, you know, to make people acknowledging that is just that they feel they consider Earth as considering their own body. And this is the ecumen, is actually we don't dissociate between being who you are and what surrounds you, whatever it is, physical, non-physical, or other individuals. And this is the common. And this is a hard, of course, something to do that requires actually a lot of tools that we already implementing, you know, and of course, everybody talked about it in different ways, in different fields.
Yes, thank you for this comprehensive comment. I was also, while you were presenting your speech, but also now with your comments, I see that you are stressing the fact that we should work on actions. And actually, since I'm an urban designer, I'm supposed to provide solutions. But as you said, the first part, before you actually come out with the solution, is to define some common grounds with different groups, stakeholders, interests, because now we have public-private interests coming together. And also the way we engage also the community in the discourse. So before being able to actually design proper solutions and actually define a path towards solutions, it is now probably time to share some awareness, because it's not fully understood, as you said. And also actions, art actions, like the one Nina is developing, it is something that encourage, approach and interaction, because there is some kind of magic and fun, at the same time.
It's very powerful. Very powerful.
Yes, people feel very attracted and curious. And so through their own experience as human beings, they can actually find their way in the path towards, awareness and acknowledgement.
Exactly.
Pinar, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I was thinking, in some ways you are the most honest, you are the urban designer, but yeah, in Safos talking, we are the architects and we are the planners to a certain extent are also okay. But yeah, architects, I think I was meaning to ask Insaf a question: how does she see herself as an architect? How this transformation should take place, because we are building more rather than improving the existing environment. Our emphasis is still building more, and our education as well is not. It's difficult to initiate this transformation in architectural education as well. So I was wondering for your opinion, actually, how do you think architectural education or the profession should transform, actually, to put the emphasis more on maybe the existing stock rather than building new? Because I think this is our
Pinar, you will not like my answer. The hat from the beginning, I always said that we needed also to say things as they are. So the way how I see myself, even having this both, I'm also a social entrepreneur. I don't exclude the sphere of economy and the market in its sense, but we have to make the difference between an activist, somebody who has something to engage with, and others who have other goals, agendas and mission. And this is kind of lovely because it's kind of a diversity, Schools, this is what we always work since years now, to deconstruct what we learn in School of Architecture. So we do it through webinars, through parallel workshops, even some university we are partnered now with, where we actually shift completely the mindset of what is the architecture. Architecture in itself, even this year, they waived on the social architecture, right? But it's too late, because it's been since this 92 or the Summit of Earth, or, the global agendas, because I was part of architecture and development from its beginning. So we know that it's a bit late, but happily it happens, that they consider that there is at least a market within that, and the way to find a win-win situation. But I see that there is a solution in reinventing actually the economy, or let's say the entrepreneurial side of architecture. Architecture in itself is completely, for me, dissociated from the architects. It's two things completely different. Schools of architecture are basically forming architects. They are not in response to architecture. I see architecture as the leg through time of knowledge. It's a process that communities are in control of, that has been fragilized by years, actually, through us. We are responsible. I always kind of see that we are part of the problem, involved within it, the way that it resists to change. And of course, what I can see, it's really amazing if we go back to a certain structure where architecture is not a school of architecture. I will see it a school, you know, of territories, where we have every kind of people, open doors in different levels, where they have access to everything, and to vulgarize this knowledge. I think that the way to do it is, and a lot of people are doing that, that architecture, it's a kind of common rights that should be in our curriculum at schools. It should be something that we are initiating our kids towards it, and that is something that we build all together. So it's not a one unique thing's industry to create architect. That's why most of us, you know, we have several hats. We kind of go through, you know, gaps towards it. I wouldn't say I love, of course, you have this passion towards it, but not really as I can say myself as an architect. I can say today that we create possibilities. This is what I can say, like create possibility, whatever it is. It gives us a lot of instruments. So all what we have been through the School of Architecture, it gives us a wonderful set of skills, of endurance, of a lot of, you know, a capacity to deal with things. And I see our profiles very, very good in taking positions, you know, as an enabler, especially in a position of decision makers. I see it also that way, and to reformulate it. But at the same time, we have to understand that what we produce and what we do, and you're talking about construction and building industries, right? So the construction and building industry, the first enabler is it's in the market. The solution is about local economy. It's about circularity. It's about going back, you know, to the value and branding our own local heritage and materials and so on. And this could be a way through which young architects find it to build their business. You know, so today we are so lucky to be in the 21st century with a lot of possibilities and a lot of tools and a lot of ways of making it, you know. So I hope I answered well.
Oh, yes, very well. I love those words that we are there to create possibilities as architects, and we are enablers. And yes, I honestly, I very much enjoyed listening to you, because yes, you have to, I mean, you obviously believe that you are a transformer yourself and you work towards that. I think that is very inspiring for us, and I'm sure everybody that is listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Pinar. You're welcome.
Sebnem, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much for both of our speakers. It's very, you know, like brain opening. I was thinking when I was listening to both of your speech that each of us as artists, architects, urban designers, urban planners, even people coming from different disciplines, we all have a different role to play on the earth. It really depends on how we, you know, from which perspective we look at the world, and we look at the public spaces, we look at architecture, we perceive the environment, etc. Well, I have one question, but before that, with these roles we have, we are influencers as well. We cannot do everything at the same time. When I speak to my students about, you know, the SDGs and, you know, our role as architects or planners, or I keep saying we need to be urbanist architects. I cannot think of an architect alone in this, you know, century. Without an urbanist mind, without an ecologist mind, we cannot be architects. And this is what I try to say. But then you talk about the market, you talk about the economy, you talk about the social issues, you know, poverty, you know, climate change, all these aspects. Then even talking about these make you tired. And then I see the students' faces, like, then I can feel that they seem, are we going to be superheroes? You know, we cannot do everything at the same time. But even if you start doing very little things, you can make an impact, a positive impact on the earth, on your society. So I think I completely agree with you, Insaf, that, you know, we should be more than architects. We should be more than artists, like Nina herself, we should keep or feel that responsibility, and we should try to do everything more than we can, more than our capabilities. We should force ourselves, and this will probably make a positive impact on the society. I was going to ask both of you, how in both your experiences, what kind of reactions you get, for example, when you are working as an architect, from your clients, whoever you are designing for, or as an artist, Lina, with the community that you are dealing with, what are their reactions? Because obviously yourselves are already aware of certain things, aware of the problems. We are, you know, educated, we read, we try to do things, but we work with, not to degrade anyone, but ordinary people with different backgrounds, with different knowledge, with different economics or educational backgrounds. So how do you interact with them? Because I'm sure both of you are dealing with different types of communities in your area. So that would be my question.
So I can say that for starters, I think to give out a small tree plant to everyone, then of course all kind of people come to plant together. And my feeling was that quite a lot of people, for a good reason, they have real anxiety about the climate change. And I think people have the absolute need to do something. But it's just hard to, like, there's so much, where to start. And I felt like this was such a great thing to give people just a simple tree and make it very easy for them to go and plant, have people to help them and give the tree for free. And this took away a little bit of this anxiety because it was like an act to do something. So, and when it comes to the mini forests which are created near the cities, there are often people living around it. It's been overwhelmingly positive, the response, because it brings really people together, and everybody's invited. And so in my case, it's I think planting trees, I mean, it gives hope, really. It gives hope to plant something that you might not be able to see in your lifetime. And I think it's important to just give something that everybody can also do, and it's easy to do and not to do. Yes, I can't, actually, I forgot your question. I hope I answered to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Sebnem, for the question. So to answer, I think that, first of all, I will just have a comment about your experience with your students. In reality, it's about, especially with the youth nowadays, they need to be inspired, as you said. So they needed to kind of, you know, find a new reference and new ways, and also the knowledge. Of course, we don't give it as it is, because, as I said, complexity in my speech is not something that our mind is trained to grasp. And the fact to tell them that to be within architects and urbanists, etc., is actually to understand this interconnectedness and this complexity. This is what is planning about. So that's why in some schools in the world, you can see them that basically architects are in that school of architecture are trained on both, all right? And there is a diversity from one country to another. You will see that there is a huge kind of, if you map all the schools of architecture or planning, you will see that how also brings out different mindsets, which is very enriching. So the fact to do it is to, first of all, not only rely on a knowledge-based, you know, teaching, is actually to have this kind of action-based teaching. Is like, basically, university lost its meaning. The university, it's about people getting, you know, into already one foot in theory and one foot in action. Today, it's basically all aiming is to get a diploma, right? So it's good to go back a little bit to the origins of why institutions has been made. The second thing is the way how we tackle everything. It's, in reality, collective knowledge, when we start with participation, is never easy. After years and years and years of practice, it becomes the nature. it means it becomes a nature, which is one of the good skills of it. It's to listen, for instance. Listening is not in our curriculum. Listening is something that is crucial today in your practice everywhere, right? So we've learned how to collaborate. And collaboration, it means what? It means, of course, we have several lives and several practice. I do the entrepreneurial, work, but I have my also, set of things. It means that I don't go with any clients. I don't go with any kind of, type of corporate work. I did it when I was young, but I decided that I don't want to continue, which led to the fact to go beyond that. So this is something that is very important, to be the ethics of the profession and the ethics of action. The other work, of course, I have parallel lives. I have the engaged one, the activist one, where I basically am not under any kind of pressure, because I wanted really to the community. It's my goal. I have a purpose within that. And the other one, of course, to live and to be able, to sustain yourself, because this is the question of how we do it, is to retransform it, because it works. Actually, whether we have what we are doing today, there is always a room to innovate, to find a way of how to build that action. So I see that if there is a huge infrastructure today is built, I'm not only one, there are a huge wave, a tsunami coming from all the fields, going beyond that, they're completely shaping, the profession and shaping the work. We can be /artists, /influencers, /architects, /entrepreneurs, /cookers, and this is amazing today, because we can be that, and that's what I see, that even when you see their eyes like this, it's normal. I had one of the students telling me I have a headache from the whole things, but bringing it up after that, when they get the first experience of being in contact with people, and it's not a lovely one, but it's a lot of tension, they are addicted to it. It starts to see, because you can see the impact completely there, and things change, because client is no longer a client, it's a friend. It has a name, you build up a history with, you have a friendship, and then this is how it changed completely. So we don't even use the word of client or a kind of, set of project, etc. So, and we are lucky. I mean, we're lucky, but it's a lot of work, of course. It's a hard, process. Yeah. So I hope I answered.
Yes, the process that leads to actions. This is exactly, what we should develop in terms of contents, in terms of awareness. And I think it is also very relevant that different experts are sitting at the same table, and they are discussing, as we are trying to do today, and they are discussing about, the challenges, but also the opportunities, because, if we talk about climate change, and if we talk about SDG 13, which is on preserving the planet, and actions that we need to take to combat climate change. I mean, those are very scary, possible futures that we envision even after ourselves, for generations to come. So, of course, the challenge is big, and, the path for developing awareness and developing common grounds, and finally, set up solutions is long process. And so, in this way, also teaching young generations about this complexity and how to actually define a proper path inside the profession, as an architect, as an activist, as an artist. It's something very challenging, because somehow it is new for all of us. So we do not have, the universal recipe to say, oh, if you do like this is right, and this is good, and you will be successful. Now everything is under doubt, let's say, somehow. What we knew was a good path leading to good solutions now is challenged because of these layers of complexities that we need to combine. So climate change is one layer of complexity that it is combined with many other layers. And the importance of these challenges are then, overimposed to the community and to the society as a whole. So we need to, and Nina also said this, we need, and also INSAF, responsibility and ethics on everything that we do as individuals, as experts, as agents of change, because we in our profession can actually produce something that could improve conditions for small communities or larger communities, depending from the impact and the kind of engagement that we are able to develop. So going back to teaching, since I also teach urban design, I like to say that now, if I have to teach you, for example, how to design a nice public space, that's fine, I can teach you. But later in your career, you will probably never have the opportunity to design just a proper public space, because you will be into so many challenges, how to engage the community, how to talk with the policymakers, how to push for a change in terms of developing strategic and innovative solutions, how to get funding to be independent enough, to have your own message, so that you can also break some of the rules and go beyond boundaries. So this complexity is it is part of the process, and the process is never ending. So we have to be really prepared, because this complexity will grow and become more and more complex. So this is what I can say and what I envision, because from when I started to teach was 2005. Now it's almost 17 years. So my way of teaching has also changed a lot from the beginning.
Exactly. I feel like it's basically we needed, what I said all the time, we are not in control of nothing. And they are today, there is, designing disorder, for instance, to use, designing encounter, designing, we plan the unplanned. So we do what we do, but we just make it the opposite. It just and this goes today to a lot of, a lot of theories and a lot of, we have a lot of concept today emerging of anti-fragility, of processes of, how to make more loose spaces than public spaces in that sense, in matter of to be managed, controlled, etc. We are challenging notions about governance, that governance is not something, it could be tailored, recontextualized, etc. And I think my experience in basically working a lot of what is called spontaneous districts, or, a lot of people would call it informal, but for me, it's about spaces of emanation. It's a spaces of people basically anyway, in their circumstances, has to take action and build their environment. All of this, we can learn a lot about how strong it is, the collective, and how basically the design could be in reality used and even expand our skills. And I like when the students, I was a student at the time also when I started, when they throw us the first day, we weren't at the studio is in the street. And this is another mindset. So I've learned that instead of going to one place where we have the normal setting, what we expect is actually, we should be within, the place where we should actually think, and to be, coffees are a good place to have a school of architecture, I would say, coffee shops or any kind of, market or whatever should be mobile. So I think this is nice to also hear, Luisa, what you're saying is true. We are not in control. It's something that we just do in a certain way. It has a scientific part of it. It's actually to not displace problems somewhere else, this is, I think, about to control probably impacts, worst one, but the good things, it's great that it grows beyond our control. And I think it's happening because it's a lot of uncharted practices actually that are not even seen today, that are happening every day in every corner around the world. And I see it, you know, you have just to scroll even sometimes the social media or whatever, and you see how the people, but they don't name it the way how we name it. It's happening. So, but we have a role, as you said, of course, it comes with us, the fact that we are kind of privileged as well to have that chance to grow and to have these skills. It comes with its own responsibilities, and that we, in a certain way, should not be unaware about what is happening in the world. So,
thank you. Now, if some of the participants would like to ask questions to the speakers or comments, if you do not have questions.
In the chat box, there's a question.
Yes, I'm checking the chat box. Yes, I see. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello. I have some comments for both of the speakers. For Mina case, it's a great project. Also, I wrote to the text chat box. I wish to see such a kind of projects in every cities, in every country, because world is all ours. So we have to do something for our world. That is a very important project. So I wish to see such a kind of project. Thank you for that. And for the in Safke speech, it is a nice to hear such a kind of full presentation, which is dealing with many issues about architecture, client, students, education. So I can say that the world is changing, technology changing, people are changing, students are changing, education changing. So we have to adapt ourselves for changing case, and we have to find ways to communicate with the students, with the clients, in order to manage these challenges and changes. So thank you for both of the speakers and for the organizer for this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
thank you very much. Thank you. It's us.
Thank you.
I think there's a question to actually Luisa yourself from Sheila.
Yes, I saw that question. It
Yes.
is, do you know any examples of public spaces that have been designed and already implemented to meet the containment measures of COVID-19? Well, not really, since, and this was my question also to INSAF before, how climate change, but also COVID-19 are changing the way we design and we think about public space. We have seen a lot of also creative practices in public space during COVID-19, for example, using tape to mark safe areas and to mark safe distances between human beings. COVID-19 also established the so-called 1.5 meter society, so that we no longer kiss each other, especially in Italy, but we stay a little bit aside, let's say, because we still have this idea that we should keep safe and be responsible also in terms of contagion, since we are still under an health crisis, even if not like before. But as we saw now in Shanghai, there are still some critical conditions for COVID-19. So this could come back, and so we have to be prepared again. and understand how to implement strategies, let's say, rather than solutions. Because, you know, contexts are very different. And I can say something regarding my experience during COVID-19. In the city where I live, Bologna, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, I designed for city space architecture a parklet, which is a public space in front of our office. And I also incorporated in the parklet trees, bushes, plants. So it was also incorporating some nature-based solutions. We are in a suburban neighborhood, so this was really intended to expand the space dedicated to people, so expand the sidewalk. So we created this, let's say, small island of 30 square meters just for public space interaction, use, and all kind of activities like sitting, talking, playing, eating, drinking, you know, all these kind of activities that are related to transit, but also permanence. And embedding also trees and plants was the opportunity to, let's say, give this message that if we have to design new public spaces in response to COVID-19, we should be able also to tackle related challenges. Nature as part of the urban context. And while I was developing this project, which actually was a temporary activation, which lasted just 10 months, we were starting in Europe to discuss about hyper proximity and the 15-minute city, which is still one of the major topics. Now there is also a certain criticism on a 15-minute city, if we take it as a slogan, let's say. But if we consider some of the contents related, for example, to hyper proximity or accessibility to services, this could be something, again, which is not new, which have been part of the discussion for, you know, many years. But something that now, since we understand finally, and we are aware that those are crucial issues, maybe now it's time for policymakers to take them into serious account when they have to develop new policies, because it's not just about designing public space. What we need now are new policies for safe public spaces. And when I say safe, I mean healthy for COVID-19, but also climate responsive in regard of climate issues. So again, I do not have solutions because this was an experimental, you know, project. Which was somehow successful, and Nina also came to visit us, and she spent some time in our parklet. But you know, was successful in a way, but not so much in another way, because you know, as we said, the process is so complex, and you have to deal with so many contents, so many stakeholders, and so many bureaucracy issues also to develop some of these projects, that you cannot say that it is fully successful, but you learn from these activities. And then that's why also I said that the process is never ending, because you learn, and then you put in your practice the lessons learned from your previous activity. So as an example, now in Sweden, since they are taking also this idea of parklets very seriously, they implemented the concept of the 1-minute city, I don't know if you heard about that, but this idea that public space should be really part of your daily experience. And so providing parklets as, instant public space opportunities for many kind of activities, also for sports, in urban areas. And so this idea that, public space is now central in the discussion, and of course it is intertwined with the climate issues and some other topics. So Sheila, if I have to answer to your question, I do not have examples, but I know about the different experiences that have been able to open minds on the fact that we need to be urban-minded in a way that we are able to collect all these different challenges and develop a comprehensive approach to public space design.
Luisa, on top of this explanation, I was thinking, do you think people are withdrawn from larger public spaces? And do you think maybe, as you say, we will be designing, well, I think in Europe, this has been going on for very long, and even the small neighborhood scale urban spaces are very valuable, and they've been designed. So do you think there's a withdrawal back from the main public spaces, and do you think these neighborhood public spaces are becoming more now meaningful for us in post-COVID period?
Yes, also because I think that what we learned from COVID-19 is that nothing is fixed, but everything is should be very flexible. And we discovered the value of temporary solutions, which were, implemented as experiments, also through tactical urbanism, for example, but that could really become a kind of practice, I would say. Also because of this, learning process. So you do something which is not supposed to stay forever, but something that could be temporary, could be adapted, could be changed, could be improved, or could be dismantled. And so, because, the pandemic will come and go, and so maybe now we feel safe again, but then in the next future, we will have to face another emergency, maybe different from the previous one. So what we designed for the first emergency maybe will not be useful for the second emergency. I don't know. But we have to be, also kind of creative in thinking about public space. And so that's why if we get some, insights from artists and creative minds, I think this is really relevant for architects, urban designers, urban planners, but also as community members, so that we actually, yes, Nina, please.
Oh, sorry, what came to my mind just very shortly is that because I did once a research about playgrounds in public houses and public spaces, because in some countries you don't have them, or they're very expensive, and things get very much vandalized. As in many countries, it's a standard thing to have a playground in public places. And but it just came to my mind when I was listening to you, because I was just thinking that, I mean, really we need a kind of new manual also, like how to learn to use the public space and how to behave in that, so that because in my experience everything works, like you can make things greens and you can create beautiful things, but one of the concern, for instance, for our first mini forest was this pop-up thing, was that it will be vandalized, because this square was a quite rough area, and they, for instance, stopped putting flowers there because they were always just destroyed. But this one was not, and I felt that maybe that was because people felt like they had access to it. It was theirs, rather than, well, I don't know, but this is also a big question of how people use their public spaces, and if they're safe, and if people have the feeling that it's theirs and therefore they should take care of it.
Just to add to your parklet idea, Luisa, I have seen one very similar in Brussels, not in a suburban neighborhood, but really in a touristic zone where there used to be, short-term sidecar parking. Like if there were maybe 8 short-term car parking areas, they reduced it to 3 only. And then they just surrounded the place with some trees and, small pots and greenery. And they just designed, reserved that place for people, because probably it was done also during COVID period. And the same happened in a US city, in Austin, along a very busy road. And there were like a couple of cafes next to each other. And short term, it was takeaway kind of cafes. But then they really destroyed those short-term parkings and they turned them into open air, small parklets on a very busy street. So as you said, being flexible, being creative, and all these are really required, and based on your requirements, depending on daily circumstances, you should be ready to change things for the better, and then you should be ready to change things back in a different way. I totally agree with that. But I think still the large scale public spaces like, city squares, all these city parks, etc., they still keep their importance and value. But now we are adding smaller scale public spaces into the city context, which is today's trend based on our requirements. And I think these will positively contribute to climate change as well. Yeah, just one small tree, one small plant will help climate change. It will make a difference.
Yeah. And just to add something, because of the time and so on, just the reality is also both, because public space during the COVID shows also the disparities. I think, for instance, if we take the case of in Egypt or in Tunisia and other cities where we are very crowded, actually the opened big squares have served very well to encounter the pandemic, because people were no longer having access to especially public services, etc. The queue was huge. They have, a tremendous experience where these have been a little bit, at least reducing that stress on it. Because of course it's a matter of density. It's a matter of how many people are living, like in Egypt, it's easy to find 8 million people living in 1-2 kilometer of road. That's not, it's the density of it. So, and also the walkability of a city. Walkability is very important, because as here in Ireland, we have been, even during the confinement, we have been able to go and walk. My family in Tunisia couldn't, because there is no other places, to go or to walk, etc. So this gives us also a way, but to be aware about how important it is, I think, in terms of experience, rather than in terms of physical elements, what the people should experience during a pandemic, and to learn also that stress, how to be able to, as you said, using creativity in a way to create, other ways of living and experiencing the city or behavior, So, yeah. So thank you for this amazing discussion. It's a great pleasure.
Yes, and also Sebnem, sorry, Lina?
I just wanted to say thank you also from my side. It's been really a pleasure to be part of this, and thank you. Very interesting conversation.
Yes, and Sebnem, for those who are interested, there is this European Prize for Urban Public Spaces, which is promoted by the Center for Contemporary Architecture in Barcelona. They have just launched the call for this year to submit successful public space projects. So and this prize was running since, maybe 10 years or more. And if you go and see what they have been selecting in the past 10 years, you actually also see how public space design has changed, and how sometimes together with, let's say, large improvements and, large transformations, you also have, many small interventions that are working together with those large transformations. I mean, in Europe, because of austerity and the lack of financial resources, some of these big projects are no longer running. And so that's why public space is more about, temporary, but right in place, short-term interventions, or let's say small improvements or spontaneous actions to adapt public areas to everyday life. So, I mean, it's complex, talking about public space is really complex. And as I said, now we are adding other layers in the complexity. So we as urban designers, I'm talking about myself, we are supposed to learn, to go back and reframe the way we approach these topics, for sure. But this is what we are trying to do with this initiative, Celebrating Public Space. So I think we can close the discussion unless there is any other questions or some comments or remarks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a very interesting,
joyful
very
session.
rich discussion we had.
Yes,
although we didn't have too
Nina.
many participants.
I think
yes. Urban designers, architects were not very keen on the Earth Day idea, but still, I think we will make an impact. I believe so.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. And see you for the next event in May.
Yes, definitely there.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.